Fellas, it finally happened. Monte Carlo has an exotic catalyst. Now, Bungie had actually teased this before the launch of Season of the Witch, claiming that it was their most complex catalyst that they have ever developed. Now, for those that have never used Monte Carlo, this is a 600 round per minute exotic auto rifle that really focuses all around your melee ability regeneration, with its main exotic perk Monte Carlo method stating dealing damage with this weapon reduces your melee cooldown and grants a chance to fully charge your melee ability with each kill. Now, this perk works just like it's stated. You get a small amount of melee energy back per hit with a chance to get a full melee charge on any final blow. Now, Monte Carlo also comes with another signature perk, Markov Chain, stating that this weapon gains increased damage from melee kills and kills with this weapon. Melee kills also grant ammo for this weapon. Now, the perk is essentially Swashbuckler, right? But on steroids. At max stacks, Swashbuckler times 5 gives you a 33% damage boost in damage. However, Markov Chain amps that up greatly. It's actually 13% damage per stack, capping out at 65% damage at max stacks. Essentially here, guys, similar to Swashbuckler, you use your melee to grant yourself Markov times 5 immediately, and then you use Monte Carlo to get your melee back, thus the gameplay loop. But of course, you could just get stacks of Markov with every single weapon kill. Now, there's extra damage from Markov Chain alongside the intrinsic 40% damage bonus against red bars that all exotic primaries have, makes Monte Carlo a solid ad clearing weapon, which is nice to have considering the amount of utility Monte can also bring to your loadout. But what about the catalyst? Ever since this exotic was released, we have asked, what if? What if we can use this beautiful bayonet and actually poke something with it? Well, luckily for us, that time has finally come. Monte Carlo's catalyst doesn't boost any of your stats, but it does come with a perk called Stochastic Vengeance. This perk states that at 5 stacks of Markov Chain, you hold reload to switch between your melee attack and the Monte Carlo's bayonet, and landing at bayonet melee grants melee energy. Now, as we previously covered, getting to Markov Chain times 5 is really not that hard. You can either kill some ads, or you can just simply get a melee final blow, and this will grant you 5 stacks immediately. Now, once you get there, if you hold your reload button, you will then swap to bayonet mode, with the status at the bottom of your screen stating bayonet locked, meaning you will now be able to use your bayonet melee even if Markov Chain times 5 runs out. In fact, you could still even shoot, reload, and even switch weapons with your bayonet locked. As long as you don't melee something, die, or deactivate it by holding reload again, you can keep your bayonet ready for your next melee attack, enabling you to do whatever you need before using that melee. Now, you can only hit something with your bayonet melee once, but if you get a kill with it, you reproc Markov Chain times 5, therefore allowing you to reactivate your bayonet melee all over again. Now, before we check out his PvE capabilities, let's check out PvP. Monte Carlo is actually performing better in PvP with the range bump, and it actually got a massive bump alongside many other weapons. Monte Carlo used to experience damage fall off at 26 meters. That has now been improved to 31 meters. And let me just say this, guys, we played with Monte Carlo not that long ago inside of PvP, and I was impressed with it. Now, the bayonet procced inside of PvP only hits for 140 damage, which is 40% higher than that of a base melee. Personally, guys, I don't think you're gonna go out of your way to get this bayonet melee. Now, there is a new strand tie-in aspect called Banner of War, a fantastic aspect. We're gonna discuss it in more detail later in this video, but if you hit someone with the bayonet after getting a melee kill with that aspect equipped, the bayonet will do 196 damage, which can in fact one-shot Guardians, 8 Brazilians or less. But of course, you do have to jump through hoops. Now, if you do use Syntheseps, you'll be able to take down anyone at any resilience value if you proc Bionic Enhancements, hitting for 259 damage per bayonet melee. Again, it can be decent with the right setup, but definitely situational. We're gonna try to make a play with it. We've got trials coming this weekend, and we're gonna try to bring it inside of comp, so be looking out for that. Now, while this is all pretty interesting, it's the damage in PvE that we need to look at. Here at Carl, a base normal melee hits for 10,246 damage. Now, with the Monte Carlo catalyst, this goes up to 57,377 damage. So essentially 5.6 times more damage here, guys. Now, in comparison to something like a base adaptive frame glaive melee, this is pretty solid. Those hit for only 13,946 damage. It's even more than the base combination blow times 3 melee for my hunters, which hits up to 41,967 damage. Now, if you add the jolt damage from the lethal current aspect, it would add 2 extra damage numbers at 50,391 and 6,266, coming out to a total of around 98,624 damage. There are also other melees that do more damage than the bayonet, things like Arthur's Embrace, with its heavy knife hitting for 119,130 damage, or a fully charged point contact cannon brace thunderclap, which can hit up to 83,253 damage, or a Liar's Handshake melee with combination blow times 3, hitting for 125,901 damage. damage. Now, after seeing these numbers, you're probably like, oh, Cross, that seems like it sucks. Well, fear not, because Synthoceps are here to save the day. With Synthoceps equipped, along with your bayonet melee, our damage goes from 57,377 all the way up to a whopping 172,130 damage. Fellas, that is pumping. You can use the bayonet also with Winter's Guile, hitting up to 215,162 damage. Granted, this requires a little more setup. Now, this is great and all, and higher than that in the Synthoceps, but it doesn't stop there. Unfortunately, the bayonet melee will not stack with most subclass perks, boosting melee damage. So things like combination blow, knockout, offensive board. That being said though, I want to put a strong emphasis on the word most. Alongside the drop of this season, Bungie released some new strand aspects. One of them being a tiny aspect called Banner of War, which states, defeat a target with a melee attack, finisher, or sword to raise a banner of war that pulses with energy, periodically healing nearby allies and increasing melee and sword damage. The targets defeated by you and nearby allies charge the banner, increasing the speed of its pulses. The biggest part here is the part about increasing melee damage. Don't get me wrong, guys, the survivability is amazing, but that melee damage. Simply getting a melee kill, you will get a whopping 40% buff to your melee damage going forward. And unlike the other subclass perks, this buff stacks with our bayonets. Monte Carlo's bayonets, in combination with Synthoceps and Banner of War, hits for a whopping 240,981 damage, which is roughly 4.2 times its base damage of 57,377 damage, and about 23.5 times that of a base regular melee at 10,246 damage. Hell, guys, if you recall our Rule 9-0 deep dive, its full combo of 2 heavy attacks while having Assassin's Blade procs was 211,161 damage in total, with Synthoceps and Banner of War bringing that bayonet melee up to 240,981 damage. Monte Carlo clears this easily. It's definitely a little more situational, and of course Banner of War would bring Rule Line 0 and its damage up substantially, which we're going to be talking about in our breakdowns for swords after the rework. But regardless, this is a super fun and unique catalyst, guys, and keep in mind these damage values are achievable with simply a primary weapon. That's what makes this so amazing. And keep in mind, Monte Carlo itself already complements some of our favorite melee builds, and this bayonet, guys, is a beautiful finishing touch on a wonderful exotic. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.